Welcome to Kairos Conversations. This is a space for clinicians, leaders, and operators who are building in the aesthetic medicine space with intention. We take the data, the experience, and the real-world challenges of this industry and turn them into clarity you can actually use. I'm Taylor Siemens, nurse practitioner, operator, and founder of Kairos. I know that in this field, it's not just about what you do. It's about when you do it and how you lead through it. Let's dive in. It's a Saturday afternoon. The pool is clean. The grill is going. There's way too much food and the bar is overstocked because I am the kind of person who would rather have leftovers for an entire week than run out. The cleaners have come. My house is looking great. Everything is ready. And about an hour before the first car is supposed to even pull into my driveway, I get this feeling. You know the one, that pit of your stomach, something is not right. Oh no feeling. I'm hosting a cookout for the team I'm supposed to be leading, and I thought this was going to be the thing. I had read all of the books. I had followed all of the leaders I looked up to, and they all said the same thing. Taylor, you've got to connect with your team outside of work. The returns are astronomical. Build the bond. Open up your home and your life and be vulnerable. Be the leader who creates community. So I did. And standing in my kitchen that afternoon before a single person had even arrived, I already knew this was going to be awkward. And it was. Most of the team didn't show. And the ones who did, they stayed exactly long enough to be polite, like 45 minutes. Like they were clocking in for a shift. And then they were gone. Everyone, except for one team member, the only person on that team that I had actually hired myself. And she stayed for hours. We laughed, we talked, we connected. It was easy and it was fun. And when she finally left that night, I turned to my husband and I said, I think that's what just happened with her. Like, I think the whole thing was supposed to feel like that. And if I ever get a chance to start fresh with my own team, that is what I want it to feel like with all of them. I went into work on Monday feeling completely defeated. My boss, the owner of the company, he could see it and he started to get on to me a little bit. He had heard about me inviting people over to my house, but he didn't have to push that hard. He saw I was already there. I was already done, and I was never going to do that again at that company. And for a long time after, I was just really confused because I had done the thing. I had followed the playbooks. And it didn't work. Why? Why didn't it work? Well, today I want to talk about why. Because what I didn't understand then, what I would give anything to go back and tell that version of myself standing in my kitchen with that pit in my stomach, is that the playbook, it wasn't broken. The team, they weren't bad. There was nothing wrong with any of us. We just weren't aligned. And no cookout in the world was going to fix that. This episode, it's about culture, what it is, who's responsible for it, how to spot when yours is off, and what to do about it, whether you're the owner of the business or someone working inside of it. Okay, let's go back to that cookout for a minute because I want to unpack what was actually happening because I didn't have language for it at the time. Here's what I thought was happening. I thought I was a really bad leader. I thought I had picked the wrong activity. I thought maybe I came on too strong, or maybe I should have done something smaller first, or maybe I just wasn't the kind of person people wanted to be around to spend their Saturday afternoon with. I made it about me. And honestly, I think a lot of leaders do that when something like this happens. We internalize it. We make this referendum on our worth. But what was actually happening, I was trying to build connection across a cultural gap that no amount of mixed drinks or hamburgers was going to bridge. The one team member who stayed for hours, the one that I had actually hired myself, she wasn't staying because I was such a charming host. She was staying because we were aligned. We saw the world in the same way. We had similar values around work and around effort and around how we treated people, around what we thought was funny and what we cared for. The connection, it wasn't manufactured by the cookout. The cookout just revealed it. And the people who left after 45 minutes, well, they weren't actually being rude. They weren't bad employees or team members. They were doing what humans do when they're in a space that doesn't feel like theirs. They stay long enough to be respectful, and then they go home to the lives that do feel like theirs. And I want to be clear about something here because this is important. I didn't realize it at the time, but those team members were not bad people. I was not a bad person. Nobody in that scenario was wrong. We were just misaligned, and misalignment is not a character flaw. It's not something you fix by trying harder or being nicer or doing more activities together. This is the thing that nobody told me in all of those leadership books I was reading. They just told me to connect with my team. They didn't tell me that you can't manufacture connection where alignment just doesn't exist. You can force all these things like proximity, participation, but you cannot force chemistry. And the reason that matters so much, the reason this isn't just like a feel-good observation, is because culture is the very foundation that everything else in your business sits on top of. Your hiring, your retention, your customer experience, those sit on it. The way your team talks about you when you're not in their room, or your patients or other team members, that sits on it. The quality of work sits on it. Everything sits on it. And if your culture is misaligned, if you've got people on your team who fundamentally don't share the same values that you are trying to build, it doesn't matter how good your systems are. It doesn't matter how clear your SOPs are, or how nice your office is, or how many pool parties and cookouts you throw. The foundation is cracked. And a cracked foundation doesn't get fixed by like throwing up some good decorations. So if you're listening to this and something about my cookout made you wince a little because maybe you've thrown your own version of it, or maybe because you've been the person stuck at the cookout watching the clock, I want you to know that what you felt was not a personal failing. It was data. It was your gut telling you something that the leadership's book didn't have language for me for. And the question really is, what do we want to do with that data? I want to say something here, and I want to say it plainly because I do think we dance around this too much in our business conversations. If you own the company, you are responsible for the culture of your company. Not your manager, not your HR person, if you even have one, not the difficult employee or the market or the economy, not the generation that you happen to be hiring from. You are the keeper of your culture. And I know that's a really hard sentence to hear if your culture isn't where you want it to be right now. I know because I've been there. I've been on both sides of this. I've been the leader inside someone else's culture, trying to make it work. And I've been the owner, sitting with that really uncomfortable truth that the temperature of the room I walked into was the temperature that I set. Here's what I mean by that. Every single thing you do as the owner sets a tone. The way you talk about patients when they're not there, the way you respond to mistakes of team members, what you celebrate publicly and what you let slide privately, who you hire, who you keep, who you let go and how quickly, what you tolerate, what you reward, the energy that you walk into work every single morning with, whether you say good morning to everyone or just the people that like are on your good side that day, right? Whether you keep your word about the small things like, oh, I'll get back to you by the end of the day. All of it. Every micro choice, that's culture. And culture is not a poster on the wall with your core values printed in your brand fonts. Culture is the accumulated weight of every small decision the people at the top of the org chart make every single day. And here's the part that's really uncomfortable. If you're an owner and you don't like what your culture has become, the only person who has the power to change it is you. Not because you're going to send out a memo, not because you're going to do some like grand team building retreat, but because culture changes when the keeper of the culture changes what they will and what they will not tolerate. That includes the hard stuff. It includes the person who's been with you for years, who's actually misaligned now. That includes a high performer who's quietly poisoning the well. That includes the habits you personally have that are setting a tone you don't actually want. It includes the way that you manage your emotions and your disappointments and your urgencies. All right, to share something with you about my brand now at Kairos, because the contrast is so stark for me. The team I have today, and I don't say this lightly, we genuinely love each other. We show up for each other. The energy in our space is something I've never experienced before in my career. And every time someone new comes into our world and feels it, they comment on it. Like we hear constantly, whatever you're doing here, it's different. And it is different, but it's not magic and it's not luck. It is the result of me protecting the culture. Like my life depends on it because I believe that it does. I believe the people in it depend on it. And I believe personally that I depend on it because I'm not going to spend the next phase of my career feeling the way I did after that cookout. So if you are an owner, and I'm going to say this with all the love that I have to give, but I'm also going to say it directly. Stop blaming your team for the culture you have built. Stop wondering why people aren't more engaged. Stop wondering why the energy feels off and stop hoping the right new hire is going to come in and shift the whole vibe. Look in the mirror. I'll hold your hand while I say this. The culture of your business is the most honest reflection of who you are as a leader. And if you don't love what you see, the good news is, and it really is good news, that you are the only person with the power to change it. Let's get practical. How do you actually know when your culture is off? Because I want to save you that cookout moment if I can. The signs are almost always there before this big blow up that you experience. We just talk ourselves out of seeing them because seeing them means that we have to act. We have to do something. So here are the things I would tell my younger self at the cookout what to watch for. Sign 1, your gut. I'm starting here because I started here. The hour before that cookout, my body knew, my gut knew. I just didn't trust it yet because I was newer to leadership and I thought maybe my discomfort was maybe a problem to work through. Maybe it was growth. I didn't know it was a situation to address. Your gut is data. And when something is off in your business, a particular team member, a particular meeting, the energy on a day of the week, it's all information. So stop overriding it. Sign 2, who shows up and who doesn't. Not just to the cookout, to the optional things, to the stretch projects, to the moments of celebration, the moments of struggle. The people who are aligned with your culture show up. The people who aren't, they slowly stop. They get quieter in meetings and they take longer to respond. They do the bare minimum and they do it well enough so you can't really actually say anything, but the energy is gone and you can feel it. Sign 3, how people talk when they don't know you're listening. And this is a big one. Walk through your business, linger, listen. Okay, I know it sounds a little creepy, but how does your team talk about patients, about each other, about you, about the work? What are the tones of the conversations when nobody's performing for you? That's your actual culture, not the one on social media. Sign 4, who your best people are spending time with. If your most aligned team members, the ones who really get it, are spending more and more time with each other and pulling away from the rest of the team, that is a huge, huge flashing red light. Aligned people find each other. They also subtly distance themselves from misalignment because it's exhausting. If you see that pattern, you're already losing the room. Sign 5, how you feel on a Sunday night. And I'm serious. The Sunday night scaries, that feeling about your own business is one of the most honest barometers you've got. If you as the owner are dreading Monday, it's not because you don't love your work. It's because something is off in the culture that you've built and it's making you not want to show up to the thing that you created. And that is worth paying attention to. The reason I want to name all of these is because misalignment rarely announces itself. It doesn't send an email. It leaks out around the edges in 1,000 small ways. And our job as leaders is to get really good at noticing those leaks before the foundation starts to give. So you've spotted misalignment. Now what? I'm going to be honest with you. This is the part most leaders freeze because the next move usually involves a hard conversation. And most of us would rather endure a really slow and painful worsening culture for months or years, honestly, than have uncomfortable conversations today. So let's talk about what to actually do. First, you've got to get really clear on what your culture actually is, not the version on your wall, the real version. What do you actually value? Not what you should value. What do you actually value? How do you actually want people to treat each other? And what behaviors are non negotiable for you? What kind of energy do you want in the room? Write it down, make it specific. Like, we value excellence is not specific, but we follow up with patients within 30 minutes, even when we don't have an answer yet, because we believe communication is care. That is specific. Specific is what you can hire to and lead to and have honest conversations about. Second, well, you got to have the conversation. This is the part I want to spend a minute on because I think we get this wrong a lot. When you have a team member who is misaligned, the kindest thing you can do, and I know this sounds counterintuitive, is to tell them the truth quickly, not cruelly, but quickly and clearly. Because every day you let a misaligned team member stay misaligned without telling them is a day you are robbing them of the chance to either course correct or go find a place where they actually belong. I've sat with this a lot. I used to think keeping someone in a role that wasn't right for them was the nice thing to do because I was, I don't know, like protecting their income or their feelings or our personal history. It's not the nice thing to do. It's the avoidant thing to do. And it costs them, it costs the team, and it costs you. The conversation doesn't have to be brutal. It can sound like, hey, I want to talk to you about something I've been noticing because I respect you enough to be honest about it. And here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I need. What's going on for you? And then guess what? You actually listen because sometimes there's a real reason. Sometimes there's a path back to alignment. Sometimes the conversation itself reveals that the person has been miserable for months and is relieved that you finally had the gusto to say something. Third, be willing to help people move on. Sometimes the right answer isn't course correction. Sometimes it's a really compassionate, well-handled exit, helping someone leave well with their dignity intact, with enough runway to land somewhere new, with a genuine acknowledgement that this wasn't a fit, but they have value, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your culture and for them as a human being. Bad culture isn't usually built by bad people. It is usually built by good people in the wrong roles, in the wrong rooms, with leaders who didn't have the courage to say something. But you can be the leader who changes that. Fourth, and this is for the team members listening, not the owners, if you are inside of a culture that doesn't feel right to you, you have more power than you think you do. You can name what you're seeing to your leadership kindly and specifically, and you can be a part of the solution by modeling the culture you wish existed. You can ask the hard questions of yourself, like, is this place not a fit for me? Or am I not a fit for this place? And guess what? Both can be true. Neither makes you a bad person. And if you've named it, modeled it, tried to be a part of the solution, and the culture still isn't one that you can thrive in, you are allowed to leave. You're allowed to go find the place where you are aligned. That's not like this quitting story. It's not disloyalty. That is taking responsibility for the only career you're ever going to have. That girl who stayed at my cookout for hours, she and I both eventually left that company, and both of us ended up in places where we belonged. There is no version of staying in a misaligned culture that ends well for anyone. Not the team member, not the overall team, not the owner, not the business, and certainly not the patients that business is serving. I'm going to close out this episode with something I would have wanted to hear when I was younger in my leadership journey, but I want to say it specifically to the owners listening right now. If you own a business and the culture of your business is not what you want it to be, I need you to hear this. It is not your team's fault. It's not the market's fault. It's not the generation you're hiring from. It's not our industry. It's not your last bad hire. It's you. And I don't say that to shame you. I say it because it's the most hopeful thing I can possibly tell you. Because if it were your team's fault, you'd be stuck. And if it were the market, you'd be stuck. But because it's you, because culture flows from the top, because the keeper of the culture is the person who signs the paychecks, that means you have all of the power that you need to change it. You can decide tomorrow what you will tolerate and what you won't. You can decide tomorrow what you'll celebrate and what you'll address. You can decide tomorrow who you'll hire next and what they have to embody before they get to be on your team. You can decide tomorrow to have the conversations you've been avoiding for months. And you can decide tomorrow to look at the version of yourself, your being inside of your business, and ask honestly, is this the leader my team deserves? I look back at that defeated version of me standing in her kitchen, waiting for guests who didn't really want to come, and I have so much compassion for her. She was doing the best with the tools that she had, but I also know that she wasn't working inside a culture that was hers to fix. She was a guest in someone else's business. When I built my own brand, I made a decision that I was never, ever going to be a guest in my own culture. I was going to be the keeper. I was going to protect it like my life depended on it. And as a result, the team I have today is something I could not have even imagined back then. They love each other. They show up. Their energy is real and nothing about it is forced. It is just what happens when you protect alignment over everything else. If you are an owner who is tired and frustrated and confused about why your team isn't where you want them to be, please hear me. The culture you have right now is the most honest mirror you will ever get. Look at it. Don't flinch. And then go to work because nobody else is coming to do it for you. You are the keeper. That is the job. And it is the most important one that you have. If this episode landed for you, if you saw yourself in that cookout story, or you're sitting with someone, some hard truths about your own culture right now, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message. Tell me what you're thinking about and tell me what you're going to change. And if you know another leader who needs to hear this, share it with them. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for another owner is to gently put the mirror in their hands. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I'll see you on the next episode. If this conversation helped you think differently about your practice, share it with someone else who's building with intention. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find more resources, training, and tools inside Kairos Aesthetic Training. Until next time, I'm Taylor Siemens. Stay curious, take action, and trust the timing of your growth.